So, one of the things we really support on the boat outfitter side is the do-it-yourselfer, right? I mean, that's a big thing. We sell a lot of finished goods, but we sell a lot of raw material as well. We sell different piano hinges and plastic sheets and sheets cut to size. And the very high-level question we get a lot is, what kind of plastic do I need to use for my boat improvement project, right?
Sure.
So at a really high level, what are the main materials that might make sense if you're doing a DIY project for a boat?
Yeah, if I'm going to run through the list real quick, you probably have King Starboard, which is an HDPE, high-density polyethylene plastic. Then you've got acrylic, right, like plexiglass. Right. You've got PVC. Everybody's familiar with PVC in the form of a pipe, but this is extruded into a sheet form.
Mostly expanded PVC, as opposed to solid. Just
right.
Solid's too heavy, but yeah.
Right.
And all those three, Matt, right, are sheet good plastic materials. They come in a big sheet and they can be cut to size. It's a flat material, right?
Right. And I'd say the other plastic that you're going to encounter in the marine industry is a thermoform plastic, but it's going to be less likely to be used in a custom application or a project.
And probably not
molded,
applicable
curved,
for you, right? I mean, if you were trying to do a DIY project, that wouldn't be applicable. It's normally the high-density polyethylene, which is Starboard, the acrylic, which commonly known as plexiglass, or the expanded PVC.
Yeah, so let's talk about the merits of those three different materials and the way that it applies to the projects, right? King Starboard, HDPE, it's dense, it's durable, but it's a softer plastic. It's more likely to flex, but if you whack it with a hammer, it's not going to break, right? Whereas acrylic, on the other hand, it's more brittle, but it has a glossier finish, and it's much more attractive for the eye. It's going to match the gel coat better, but it is still a durable material. It's just more likely to break than Starboard, right?
Yeah, it's interesting. It's more rigid, but able to break or crack, whereas Starboard wouldn't. I think one important thing to think about is, most people probably picture plexiglass or glossy plastic. The fastest way for a layperson, I would explain Starboard, is think like your cutting boards, right? The cutting board, the plastic cutting board material, it's got that textured finish to it, which again,
like an orange peel.
The orange peel finish, which again, some people might argue that because that doesn't match the gel coat,
finish.
the gloss, the finish of your boat, that maybe acrylic is a higher end look, but you give up a little bit there because one, it's more expensive, and two, it is more brittle, can't break.
Right. And then PVC is the other material that we're talking about, right? And PVC is usually a material that you'll find on a boat, but you won't know it's there until you actually go and pull something apart.
It's more of a substrate.
It's more of a substrate. Yeah. They'll use it as a backing board or a mounting board on the inside of a console for electronics. They use it for upholstery. Most of the time, the upholstery that you have either on the inside the cabin, even for some of your backrests, it's a PVC material that has foam and upholstery wrapped around it.
And what about like Starboard or acrylic? What are the most common things you use those, or you've seen those for?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of crossover in those materials. I mean, almost 100% crossover. But you'll see them used in doors, deck hatches, live well lids, console doors.
One important thing about acrylic that I don't think we mentioned yet is acrylic, unlike Starboard's completely opaque. You can't see through it. There's no version of Starboard that's transparent, whereas acrylic, there's both opaque and transparent, and then different degrees of transparency acrylic, right? So, there's the pure white, black, white or black, opaque acrylics, but then there's purely clear. There's green edge. It's meant to look like glass. Then there's the different tinted acrylics.
Yeah. Right.
So if say for example, there's some things that are just hard stops. Like I want a clear live well lid acrylic.
Right.
Right. I want a door, a console door. Well, you could do it out of poly, right? Yeah, which is Starboard.
Right.
Excuse me, a bunch of different terms. You could use that as Starboard, or you could do it out of acrylic. Right. Starboard's going to be there forever, but the acrylic is actually a little more rigid. Once you get a very big door, now you might want the rigidity of the acrylic.
Right, it's less likely to take on a bend or a warp.
What about ability to work with the different deals? Would you say acrylic is, I would say, by far the most difficult to work with?
By far more challenging.
Yeah.
When you're cutting it, you'll get chipping on the edges. Even with a good fresh blade, that can happen. Sometimes it comes from either pushing the material too fast or too slow on the saw. Starboard
drill bits.
You need special drill bits so that it doesn't blow the material out on the punch through. And then Starboard, on the other hand, it's almost the most forgiving material you could be working with. It cuts very easily, cuts very quick. The only thing you really have to look out for there is maybe using a hole saw that you don't heat the material up.
Yeah, the other thing with acrylic is, when you cut acrylic, you have to repolish the edges. Whereas
sure.
Starboard, the edge, assuming you're using a decent bit, right?
Mm-hmm.
The edge finish is going to be nice as it is. Whereas acrylic, you have to come back and polish the edges. In fact, I'd go as far to say, for the average person who's just doing a general boat improvement project, and want to work with woodworking tools, they want to get something simple done, if you can imagine a cutting board type material that matches, which we have all the different colors that matches the common gel coat. If you picture a cutting board material that's easy to work with, King Starboard is probably the answer.
Yeah.
If you have questions beyond that, I would encourage you to call in, because we've done just about everything you can out of
Right.
Starboard and acrylic and PVC for that matter. So if you have your questions beyond that, but I think if you had to give one answer, the answer would be King Starboard.
Yeah.
Which
That-
again is a
agreed.
UV stabilized high density polyethylene,
Right.
super common, used for decades in the marine industry.
Mhm.